This is Connor from Courageous Nerd, and welcome back to the YouTube channel for another interview. Joining me is actor and television host Oliver Trevena, who you might recognize from his work with Young Hollywood. Oliver is starring in new film The Rising Hawk with actor Robert Patrick and sat down with me to chat all about it. Enjoy this interview. Great, so welcome and thank you for taking the time to do this.
Of course. Lovely to be with you, Connor.
Great, and how have you been finding living in the pandemic so far?
It's been a bit of an emotional roller coaster. I think probably for many as well. In the beginning, it was kind of, a bit nutty, a lot of fear. I think also because of, the world of media that we live in. Um, and I got coronavirus pretty early on as well. So
Oh,
I had coronavirus in like March, and that was kind of, there was a lot of unknown and a lot of like, oh, you're gonna die,
mm,
things going around, which obviously is still there. But I live alone, and I'm up in the hills in Hollywood, so it's quite remote. So I was a bit panicky. I actually had the virus for like 6.5 weeks as well,
right.
um, which is it wasn't. Didn't have symptoms for that long. I was just a few days really. That wasn't just kind of like a bad flu. But they kept testing me like every 10 days, and it just kind of stuck there. It didn't want to leave me, which I'm
Mm,
flattered by. I take that as a compliment. The coronavirus
yeah.
didn't want to leave me. It must have had some fun in there. So yeah, that was strange, and then kind of got back to life. But yeah, I mean, it's strange. I think the hardest thing for me is, I've lived in the States now for 16 years, but I
Mm,
come back home at, you know, an extreme amount. I come back for a lot of football games. My mum and dad and my three older brothers are all still in East Sussex, and I come back and visit them every 2 to 3 months, for long weekends here and there. So this is the longest I haven't been back for. So I'm definitely missing home and missing the family. And in general, travel. I'm used to being on the
yeah.
go a lot, so it's been weird, but it's also been lovely as well to just sit still a bit, reflect, take some time for myself, and get some kind of foundation stuff in order. Yeah, it's weird. It's I think like most people I speak to, it comes in waves. One day you're like, oh, I'm fine, gonna get used to this, and then the next day you're like, fuck you, Corona. um, it's like it's just that. So yeah, mate. But I think the one feeling that we all have in this is it's not something that's just affecting one of us. It's affecting everyone, and there's
Sure.
some kind of like unity to it, even though it's a negative. It is something that we're all suffering from or being hit by, all in different ways, obviously. But in that, you find some peace because it's not like it's something that's just you.
Mm. Yeah, and I was wondering what inspired you to become an actor. Did you know from a young age it's what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I mean, I love performing. I'm the youngest of four boys.
Mm,
I grew up in Hastings, down on the south coast, which doesn't have a lot of, well, at least in the 80s. I was born in 81. I didn't have a lot of performing theatres going around, but I think my mum says that it was always my choice, but I started performing at like, I started theatre school and dance school. I was in ballet when I was like 3 4 years old, so I don't know anywhere in Hastings where I was walking as a 3 4 year old and said, mum, I want to do that. So I think
mm,
my mum might have had something to do with it, as much as she says it was all my choice. But yeah, it was from a young age. I just kind of loved it. I love performing. I love, getting to be someone else. Um, yeah, it was. I loved it. I mean, it definitely came with some troubles as well. It was
right.
kind of a roughish neighborhood in Hastings, so I, definitely got it handed to me a few times and got in quite a few, street fights and lost some teeth along the journey. But I loved it. Obviously, I loved it because I wouldn't have stuck with it if I didn't. So it's been a while now, yeah. But it was always, I don't know, it was always something that I just, when you're performing the rest of kind of reality just stops. You know, it's a great way to disappear, um, and become something else. And I think it's, you know, it's, for me, it's become a real, like, you know, release, or an escape, I should say.
Right. And as you already mentioned, and as we were talking about before we started the recording, you're originally from East Sussex in England. So when you were starting out, did achieving success in America feel attainable to you?
I mean, honestly, I never really thought about LA,
Mm,
or America. I was kind of settled in London, and then it was just the kind of random, you know, opportunity moment that just kind of brought me here. And it was kind of ahead of, you know, going back 16 years when I came to LA. There wasn't a lot of Brits here. I definitely didn't know, you know, friends like I do now. I mean, so many friends from back home are now over here, and there's a big, you know, huge British community. And you know, definitely not in the entertainment business. So, you know, people would come over for projects, but they weren't living here. So
mm,
it was quite a risk. You know, I look back on it now, and it was, you know, didn't know anyone, um, apart from the, you know, the management and the people that I'd met through work who kind of offered to bring me over here. Um, and then, you know, quickly made some friends, and some, one of the first fellow Brits that I became close to was Robbie Williams. And
right.
that was quite, you know, funny, because I met, you know, meeting Robbie here is different to meeting Robbie there, because here he was more like just a normal guy in a coffee
Mm,
shop, you know. Um, and it was great. I mean, I've never really looked back. You know, I love it here. As I say, I think the key to me being here is because I'm, you know, I'm blessed. I'm lucky to get back as much as I do. Um, so, you know, I don't think I could, you know, be here and never go home. So the getting back home part is a massive factor to me being happy here as well, because, you know, I love England. It will always be, it's, you know, I've spent a good half of my life here now. But
mm,
England will always be my home, you know. um,
right.
Something about it that's just, you know, it's something about the rawness and the, you know, English people that I just will always, you know, gravitate
Mm.
towards. So
Yeah, and so during your career so far, you were a host on Young Hollywood. So how did you find exploring that part of the industry through that job?
yeah, it was exciting. I mean, you know, everything from Young Hollywood to, you know, I did the pre-show for the Grammys over here and the
Right.
American Music Awards, and, you know, shows for the Hollywood Reporter. So, you know, some very prestigious, you know, companies and award shows that, you know, I managed to just, you know, meet some, you know, meet people that I never thought I'd meet, and not only just meet with them, but sit and talk with them, you know, for 20, 30 minutes. I mean, kind of like yourself, I love it because, I mean, I try and keep it. I always try to keep it. You know, there's the work factor, there's the research and the projects they're promoting and what you're talking about, that I would always make sure I was, you know, had the knowledge of. But
Mm,
mostly, I'll try and keep it conversational and fun. And that was what I really loved, because you just got to know some people and got moments from people that you know, the other interviewers might, you know, might have missed or not got. And I found that I always, you know, built a great rapport with the actors, with the musicians, the people that I was interviewing, because of that kind of honest reaction. You know, I went into it with what I needed to know, but I kind of always let the interviews just take the way they were going. You know, let them flow in the direction of whatever the conversation was going, and, you know, had some fun with it. And it was great, mate. As I say, I met some amazing people. Some of my dearest friends to this day I met by
mm,
sitting on a sofa. You know, friends like Vanessa Hudgens, you know, I met so young, and so many people that, you know, I've interviewed, and we just, you know, became friends. So I'll always be grateful for that part of my life, and, you know, I loved it. But, you know, for me, a couple of years ago, as I said, I grew up as an actor. You know, I went theatre school, and it was always something that I cherished and enjoyed. And I think it just got to a point for me where I was like, I don't want to sit and interview everyone
right.
about their films anymore. I want to be in the films.
Mm,
And there were definitely some people, you know, around me, and agents and managers, that thought I was crazy. You know, they were like, well, you're working every day. Like, I never really, you know, I wasn't out of work for 9, 10 years running as a host. Which, as you know, in the entertainment business is a good run. So to make that
mm,
choice to jump ship was a big one. But I also feel like, you know, in the world today that we live in, a lot of hosts cross over, a lot of actors, you know, you've got The Rock hosting game shows, a lot of people are doing that kind of crossover, that the door was
Sure.
open. So, and it's never, I never say never. It's not forever. It's something that I just want to commit to and give it a go. And that's what I've done. And it's, it was hard in the beginning because constant work would still be offered to me as a host, and I had to
Right.
keep saying no and choose to not work in the hopes that I would get acting work. So, there was definitely moments. It was tough, but I'm happy with the way things are going, and works. It's different in the acting space because it is more up and down. Projects come, you shoot something, you get back, and then you're waiting for the next. Whereas I was used to, as I said, working pretty much at least 5, 6 days a week for 9 years. So it was different for sure, but I'm enjoying it, and it's a challenge. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned in life is sometimes you need those challenges again. Sometimes you need to take those risks, whether it's when you're 15, whether you're 20, or when you're 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, whatever it is. I think those moments when you're like, I'm going to take a gamble, it kind of reignites you again. It gives you that kind of fire that you
Yeah.
used to have. And sometimes the only way you can get that is by taking a risk, because we
Mm.
become too complacent and comfortable in other areas. And that for me was, I was extremely comfortable as a host. I loved it, but I was extremely comfortable. I wasn't, challenged that much. It became, which I think was why I enjoyed it, and why I obviously, was good at it and kept getting booked, is because I was comfortable with it. But at the same time, I was like, I want to struggle a little bit in a as crazy as that sounds, and by the way, in moments I'm like, why did I choose that? But yeah, it's been an adventure for sure.
Sure. And I guess outside of acting and hosting, what would your other interests or passions be?
Well, I love I've kind of got into I kind of health and wellness is a big part of my life the last few years.
Right.
Just because I think the older I've got and living like a life in LA in the entertainment business, it can get kind of exhausting.
Mm.
Because you're kind of burning the candle at both ends, as they say. You're like working in the day, and then you're out at premieres at night and parties and events. And a few years ago, I just got really interested in that, and I invested in a gym called Dog Pound, which is kind of a fun, like, personal training, one-on-one kind of high-end clientele gym.
Mm.
I have an investment in a place called Next Health, which is like an optimization center, which sounds crazy to a lot of people, but it's like cryotherapy and stem cell and oxygen chambers. It's all that stuff. And then, I also have a beverage company called Cali Water that we're launching this year. So it's exciting. I like the business side of things. I still enjoy because it's very, it's creative. I've been involved with the UK brand All Saints for a while, as well as their global ambassador, and kind of got to know some of the business side of things, staying close with those guys. And it's been great on that front. So, I enjoy that because the downtime as an actor that all of us have, it gives me something to fill my time, and I'm not
Yeah.
really good with too much downtime. So I'm grateful for that. But passion wise, I'm hugely involved in philanthropy. So,
Mm.
I have an organization that I've been the spokesperson for 8 years called Not for Sale, which is a global organization against human trafficking and slavery. Um, I do work with them on a regular basis. I'm currently working, due to the pandemic, I can't travel. Our first shelter we built is in Thailand, but obviously, it's hard to get there at the moment. So
Of course.
I'm working with the Skid Row Housing Trust here in LA, which is the biggest organization that build single occupancy homes for the homeless. Because the homeless issue here in LA is worse than ever. So I'm doing stuff for them at the moment. I actually just hosted their virtual gala, which is the only hosting gig I've done because as I said, I'm staying away from it. But at the end of the day, it was for charity. So um, I've done that, and then I hosted the Imagine Dragons charity gala for them last year as well, because Joel McHale was away last year. So I'll step in and still host things when it makes sense for that, because it's giving back. But yeah, the charity stuff is good for me because it just keeps my mind in a very, I feel giving back is a massive important thing for us all. It's easy to become, especially in the bubble of Hollywood, it's easy to become a bit self-obsessed. I'm definitely guilty of that in
Right.
moments. I think anyone that tells you any different is lying. I think we all have our moments of like, just in our own heads. So the charity stuff and the giving back is just important because it kind of gets me out of myself. And it's a great feeling, you get. So that's something I'm passionate about for sure. I always try and keep actively involved, one way or another, in giving back, with an organization either local to me or globally, or somewhere that resonates.
Right, and one of your recent acting projects is feature film The Rising Hawk.
Yes.
How would you describe the plot and your character to anyone who might not be familiar with
I
it?
think in the UK as well, it's called something different. I think it's coming out in the UK. It's called The Fall of a Kingdom.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think double check on that, but I don't know the reasoning behind it. But the UK, on iTunes and Amazon, and I think in some theaters it's being called that. I did hear that from the director. But
Right.
yes, it's based off a very, probably the most famous novel in the Ukraine. It's kind of like their historic novel,
Mm,
which I'll send you the spelling, but it's pronounced Zakar Bakut. Um,
right.
so it's based off their big novel. So it's a kind of a Ukraine US co-production, and it's like a 13th century kind of warrior, pre Genghis Khan kind of, the Mongols invade, and it's kind of a historic kind of warrior pick, really.
Mm,
Like, it's fun. I mean, for me, my character, it was something that um, I'd never played before, for sure. Um, I had been in various roles in TV shows and stuff like that, but never got to hold a sword or ride a horse, Um,
right.
and also getting into character was so much fun because when you're put in these costumes and you're dressed to the extent and you're holding, the swords, obviously for some stunts we had to change swords, but the swords that you're holding are fully weighted swords and you just feel like the role, and you're standing. We shot a big chunk of it in the Carpathian Mountains. So it's good. I mean, it was mind blowing for me in every way. I mean, there were so many moments when I was like, I can't believe I'm here. You stand at the top of the mountain on a horse, or standing there with a sword and doing these action scenes and fight scenes, and it was kind of crazy. But yeah, my character is called Bohun,
Right.
and I'd say that he's the kind of crazy one of the film. Everyone's somewhat put together. I'm just a bit of a loose cannon. I remember the director in the auditioning process kind of said, "Imagine this guy to be like Mickey out of Snatch," which was
Right.
Brad
Mm,
Pitt's role, and it just resonated because it's just well, I won't say I'm pretty normal. We all have our moments, but I'm pretty normal in real life. So it was just nice to play this, completely crazy person.
sure.
And it was great, getting to train with a stunt team. They're incredible. It was definitely a challenge. I'd never, held a sword at all. I might have lied a little going into the project, pretending that I had, but I hadn't. I didn't in Hastings. I know we have the Battle of Hastings kind of they redo it every year, but I never really paid much attention. I was either dancing or on a football field, I should say, for the UK people.
Mm.
Sounding very, very American right now, calling it soccer. But it was a challenge, and the stunt team just put me through it every day, hours and hours. I'd go back to my hotel room with this stick and have to practice all the figure of eights and the sword moves and learn extremely quickly. But like I said, the reason I wanted to push myself is because I wanted to be challenged, and with this, I definitely got it. The stunt team actually were nominated for the Taurus World Stunt Award, for
Right.
best action. So that kind of shows you, the team that we were working with. So yeah, it was great, mate. It was great.
Right. And you kind of touched on it briefly with what you were just saying with auditioning. So how was the process of becoming involved with the film?
Uh, the process was good. I mean, it was. You mean the actual getting the role part?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, 'cause you mentioned obviously the audition process. I was
Yeah.
wondering, like, was that?
So
Yeah.
yeah. So basically, yeah. I mean, I put an audition down on tape. Um, which even more so now is the way that actors do it, especially with COVID. It's all we do is put things on tape. And the director liked it. The writer Richard Ronat and the director John Wynn and one of the producers, I then went and met them for like a coffee. It was at the very LA, the Four Seasons in Beverly Hills. We sat there and we had a chat and talked about the role. And yeah, that was it really. I put the scene down, a couple of scenes down on tape. They liked it. I met them, and I guess within 4 weeks or something, I was on a plane to the Ukraine. So that's the nature of the business. It sometimes happens quick, and it sometimes happens extremely slowly. So.
Right, and among your acclaimed co-stars in the film is Robert Patrick. How much of a
Yes.
learning experience did you have working alongside him?
I mean, that's one of the highlights of this film. And I heard a lot of actors say it, when they've been on projects for months at a time on location, how the cast really become like your family. But for me, it really was the case. I mean, both Robert and Tommy have become dear friends of mine. I speak to, Tommy regularly. I speak to Robert regularly. And also Alex Mitnickle, Poppy Drayton, Rocky Myers, Alison Doody, even, we all keep in touch. It was a real experience for all of us. But yeah, working with those guys, Tommy and Robert in particular, it was just amazing. Tommy and I were texting the other day actually, and he was like, he saw a cut at the end, cut of the film, and he texted me saying, you did such a great job, brother. And I honestly said to him, I said, mate, I learned from you because, when they're on set and you see, there were moments where, Tommy's told to ride this horse and they'll be like, well, stop around here. And Tommy's like, well, just tell me where you want me to stop. And they're like, well, stop around here. He's like, tell me exactly where you want me to stop. And Tommy would do it. He owns horses. He's a genius on a horse. And watching him, and I think one of the lessons I took from him is just the time that they take. Their presence. Sometimes it's not just about the lines; it's the in between and the sheer presence that those guys have. We're familiar with it on screen, but getting to watch it, from 5 feet away, is a masterclass in itself. So I'm grateful for that. Grateful that I got to work with them, and grateful for their friendship. I'll be forever friends with those guys. So hopefully work on something else with them sometime soon.
Yeah, that's really awesome to hear about. Something else you actually mentioned earlier was that you'd been on television shows.
Yes.
And are there any currently on the air, or ones maybe that have just finished that you'd really want to be on?
No, that I'd like to be on, or I am on. That I'd like to be on, right?
Yeah.
Actually, that I'd like to be on, funny enough, is Peaky Blinders. I love it, and I did have a meeting with Anthony, the director, not that long ago. So you never know, but I'm just such a fan of that show in every way. Some of the best acting I think I've ever seen. Cillian Murphy is just a genius. Paul is just absolutely brilliant. It's a great cast. It's a great show. It's a great story. It's so well shot. That's one of my favorites for sure. There's so many. That's the thing right now. There's so much great TV out there.
Yeah.
Such a variation too. I watch things like Ozark and then, binge it. And then I'll switch on to, there's a show called Hannah. The lead actress is actually Irish. And so I was going to use profound, bad language then, but I'll use it. So fucking brilliant. She's amazing.
Right.
So, it's exciting when you get to see, I think she's like 16 or 17, when you get to see someone like that and you're just like, wow, there's a star, it's some of the shows out there are great. So yeah, cut a long story short, I think Peaky Blinders, Hannah, I'd love to be on.
Yeah.
Obviously Game of Thrones was epic. There's so much Outlander, so much out there.
Yeah, and I guess if any of those do happen, you heard it here. So who knows? Maybe you can manifest it.
I'm all up for manifesting. So yeah, there's someone just told me I've got to watch Vikings. They saw some clips from my show and was like, you need to watch Vikings. So I just started that recently as well. And it's, when you see the Rising Hawk and you'll see my character, I could definitely, vision myself on some of those shows. So, we'll see what happens. But it's it's an exciting time. It's a good movie. It was so much fun. You never know how an audience is going to react, but I
Yeah.
had fun doing it, and I enjoyed the role. So the rest is up to everyone else. But it was fun, mate.
Yeah, and kind of a different angle. If you had the funds to put together your dream project, what do you think it would look like? Like, who would be in it, and what do you think it'd be about?
God, that's a great question. Oh, I don't really know. It's tough because
Mm,
I love action projects, but I also love comedy. I was trained at improv, and that's what helped with my hosting a lot. And I think I like playing comedy sometimes because I think people looking at me from the exterior are like, oh, he's an action guy,
mm,
tough guy, shaved head. So I like to do some of the comedy, just throw people off. Um, so maybe there you go. It would be an action comedy.
ah,
um, that is a clear answer there, clear cut answer. An action comedy. Um, who would be in it? Actors right now. I mean, actors right now that I love watching. John Barenthal. I think he's brilliant. Michael
right.
Shannon. I love watching. I mean, then of course there's legends and people like De Niro and Leo and just people that will always be. I've Scorsese directed. I mean, if this is my budget and there's no limit to funds, then we could continue the list and just have cameo after cameo. But I think an action comedy would be good. I also love watching romances and stuff like that because I think anything that makes you feel, which hopefully is in most movies. I think that's the object. But I love a good cry or I love a good laugh. Something that just pushes you to feel. That's my personal favorite, and that's what I'd always like to make or hopefully give people.
Right, and this is actually the last question I've got here. And obviously, with COVID and everything's going on, the world's in a challenging situation. So, if you could send a message to fans of your work or you personally, what would it be?
Um, Let me think about this one because it's the last one as well, and it's a big one.
Mm.
You end with the big stuff, didn't you, Connor?
Well, I
Um,
try.
I would say, what? I'd say a quote that my grandma always says to me, or always used to say to me. She's passed now, but she was a brilliant
Oh,
Irish lady from Belfast and would always find the light in the darkness. She would just always, doesn't matter what's going on, she'd switch and just, push a positive on it. But she used to say this one quote for me was, "It's always okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end."
right.
So that would be my. If I don't know if I cheated there by using someone else's. I mean, it wasn't my grandma's quote. I can't remember who said it, but it's a quote.
Yeah.
Is
Well,
that cheating?
no, it's still a sentiment all the same. So I think you're good. I think you're good.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. I didn't want to lose the game show.